Welcome to Nightfall Story Lounge, your nightly escape into romance, mystery, comedy, and sweet dreams.
The office was quiet in the way I liked it. Controlled, orderly, mine. A deep sigh left me as I looked at my schedule. One final name remained highlighted on the screen. My last client of the day. Time had flown by, but today had been busy, productive, focused. I loved days like this. Busy meant no wandering thoughts, no emotional detours, just structure and execution. Tomorrow was Ms. Margo's funeral. Ms. Margo, who had always felt like a mentor, like a friend, like family. I needed everything wrapped up cleanly tonight. No loose ends, no distractions. Grief had its place. Tonight, work asked for clarity. I finalized the remaining documents on my desk, scanning each page with practiced precision. Who knew being a lawyer, helping people put their final wishes in order, would feel so fulfilling? I did. I always knew helping people, especially in a legal environment, would suit me. I loved my job. I was good at it. Really good.
Ms. Alchemy Smith?
I looked up to see an older gentleman standing at my office door. I'd left it open since my secretary had gone home early.
Yes,
I replied, standing.
please come in.
I'm Mr. Gibbs. I have a 4 o'clock appointment.
Of course.
I said warmly.
It's so nice to meet you.
I extended my hand, offering a firm, confident shake before gesturing toward the chair.
Please have a seat.
And just like that, I slipped into my element. I explained the importance of having his estate in order, how clarity now prevented confusion later, how preparation was a final act of love for those left behind. He listened intently, nodding as he outlined his assets and wishes. Time disappeared. Before I realized it, we were standing again, exchanging polite goodbyes. I locked up shortly after, the click of the door echoing down the hallway as I headed out for the night. Uptown Charlotte glowed as I walked through my apartment lobby, heels clicking softly against polished floors. I headed straight for the elevator, exhaustion settling in only once the doors closed. Inside my apartment, I kicked off my heels and headed straight for the bathroom. The mirror caught my attention before I could turn away. Confident, elegant, productive, determined. All words that described me. And I looked the part too. If only I felt that way about more than just work. I didn't give myself time to sit with that thought. Instead, I turned the shower on hot and stepped inside, letting the steam rise around me. The water soothed every tight muscle, every carefully held breath.
Alexa, play Smooth R&B.
Music filled the space as I reached for my body scrubs, shower bombs, and lotion, turning the moment into a ritual. Comfort, control, care. I worked the tension out of my shoulders, letting the week rinse away. Later, wrapped in silk pajamas with a glass of wine in hand, I moved into the kitchen. I worked hard to keep my body right, so dinner was simple. Nourishment, not indulgence. As I ate, my thoughts drifted to Miss Margo. The last time we spoke, she'd sounded different, almost like she was speaking in code. She told me she admired that I never rushed into relationships, that she respected how focused and determined I was, how I never compromised, how I always waited patiently for what I wanted. You've always known, she'd said, and you never settle. I'd thanked her, but I hadn't understood what any of it had to do with love. I hadn't dated anyone seriously since freshman year of college, and that relationship ended the moment I found out he cheated. I didn't believe in staying where I wasn't valued. Besides, I always believed I would know, without question, when I met the one. I cleaned the kitchen, loaded the dishwasher, and glanced at the clock. 8:30 p.m. Tomorrow would be long. I headed to bed, exhaustion settling in as I pulled the covers around me. My mind lingered on Ms. Margo, on that subtle smile she always wore, like she knew something, like she was holding a secret she wanted to share but refused to rush, like she dared you to ask. I never did.
I really wish I had.
I whispered into the quiet. That was my last thought before sleep took me. I woke up feeling rested. That alone felt like a small miracle. The week had wrung me out. Long hours, heavy cases, quiet emotional weight I rarely acknowledged. But this morning my body felt recovered, calm, clear. I lay still for a moment, staring at the ceiling as soft morning light filtered through the curtains. Today would be full. I sat up slowly, feet touching the cool floor, and almost immediately remembered the document. Miss Margo, her estate file flashed through my mind, followed by a subtle tightening in my chest. I'd reviewed everything thoroughly, of course I had, but there was one detail I hadn't fully focused on: her designated contact. I remembered it was one of her nephews, but I hadn't lingered on the name. I needed to know who to look out for today. Later, I told myself. I'll check it later. Right now, routine came first. I moved into the bathroom, flipping on the light and catching my reflection again. Even barefaced and slightly puffy from sleep, I looked steady. I tied my hair back and began my skincare routine methodically. Cleanse, tone, serum, moisturizer. The familiar rhythm grounded me. Brush teeth, floss, mouthwash, control, structure, calm. By the time I stepped out of the shower, steam lingering behind me, I felt centered, ready. The closet doors slid open, revealing neat rows of carefully curated choices. I stood there longer than I expected, fingers grazing fabric as I considered what today required of me. Professional, respectful, grounded, but not invisible. My hand paused on a black dress. Simple at first glance, but with a sheer panel that softened the severity. It hugged my curves just enough to remind the world I was a woman, not just a title. Confident, polished, with a quiet hint of playfulness. This was it. I wanted to look like myself. A professional woman who had earned her place, but who hadn't erased her femininity to get there. I left my hair down, smoothing it just enough to look intentional without being rigid. Heels followed. Sensible, but powerful. 2 stops before the funeral home. I grabbed my bag and keys and stepped out into the morning air, Charlotte already awake and humming. Traffic moved steadily as I made my way to the coffee shop. I usually made coffee at home, measured, perfect, exactly how I liked it. But today, convenience won. I placed my order, retrieved the cup, and took my first sip in the car. It wasn't perfect, but it was warm, grounding, enough. Next stop, the florist. I pulled into the small shop and paused before going inside. I usually ordered arrangements ahead of time, quick and efficient. But something about today felt different. Ms. Margo deserved more than efficiency. The bell chimed softly as I entered, the scent of fresh blooms filling the space. I walked slowly, letting my eyes wander. Roses felt too expected. Lilies too somber. Then I saw them, lavender mini calla lilies. Soft yet vibrant. Elegant without being stiff. Comforting. Alive. They reminded me of her immediately.
These!
I said, pointing. The florist smiled knowingly, as if she understood something unspoken. The arrangement came together beautifully, balanced, thoughtful, full. I filled out the card carefully. Sorry for your loss, simple, respectful. I slipped my business card behind it, not as a gesture of work, but of support, availability. The funeral was scheduled for 11 a.m., earlier than most. I arrived at the parking lot at 10:15, better early than rushed. I stayed in the car for a moment, sipping the last of my coffee and letting the silence settle. Traffic had taken more out of me than I realized. 15 minutes passed easily. As I reached for my door handle, the thought struck me again, the document. I froze. Slowly, I set my coffee down and reached into my bag, fingers closing around the familiar folder. I flipped it open, heart beating just a little faster than before. I turned to the page, skimmed the name. My breath caught. I read it again. No, yes, I knew him. Not well, but enough for recognition to land like a quiet shock, of all people. There was no time to unpack it, no space to chase the why or the how. The moment passed as quickly as it arrived, swallowed by reality. I closed the folder, slipped it back into my bag, and reached for the flowers. Whatever this meant, it would wait. I stepped out of the car, posture straightening instinctively as I walked toward the funeral home. The doors loomed ahead, heavy with expectation and unspoken intersections. I didn't rush. I walked in calmly, confidently, unaware that the quiet order of my life had already begun to shift.